Hey guys, what's up? This is JRP77 from JG Games, and we're going to be continuing my tutorial series on the Blender modifiers. Now, in the last one, we learned how to apply the armatures and essentially learned about the armature modifier. We're going to do the cast modifier next. But before we get into that, don't forget to check out our website. There will be an annotation up there and also a link in the description if you're on the mobile version or something like that. Don't forget to subscribe, because if you subscribe, you won't miss a Blender modifiers tutorial or a HUD tutorial or anything like that. And then also, don't forget to follow us on social media: Instagram, Twitter, Google+. Instagram is at JGN_games, Twitter is at JGNgames, and Google+ is JGNgames. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, the cast modifier is one of those modifiers that kind of doesn't stand out, partly because it doesn't have that big of a use. But this is a pretty cool modifier, and I'm going to leave a link up here to Blender Cookie's video. He does a really good tutorial on this. I'm just going to cover the basics because I'm trying to do this pretty quickly, and I'm just kind of going how the modifier works. But he does a pretty cool tutorial, and I'm actually going to be showing you what he does, because this was his idea of the animation we're going to be doing. So first, let's go ahead and add, we're going to add our cast modifier. Now you'll see it doesn't do anything. I'm going to expand it so you can see it better. So now if I just go in and zoom in, you'll see that nothing really happens. But that's because that we don't have anything. With the factor set at 0.5, that means that it's smaller than the object. So there's no real effect. But if I bump this up to 10, for some reason, it still doesn't work. And that's because, oh, that's right. If I set this back to 0.5, you'll see this is not the best example because this only has 8 vertices. So I'm going to hit Tab, and I'm going to subdivide this, and I'm just going to go down to these cuts and bump it up. Now you'll see that it's starting to have an influence. So if I set the to negatives, you can see you can get a pretty cool effect, but you can also get a cool effect like this. So you can make a pretty cool you can make a really cool like procedural animation with this, or you could just use it for like objects in your game, like, I don't know, a pickup or something like that. So that can be something cool you can do with it. But one of my favorite things you can do with this, and as Blender Cookie does in the video that's going to be in that card up there, you can actually make a cool animation from this. So cast type allows you to make cool things, like if you wanted to do something like this where it was rounded on the outside but on the inside it wasn't, so like you could do like that and you can make a cool little thing right there. You can turn off all of these actually, so you can get different effects for different things. You also have different types of casts. You can have sphere, you can have a cylinder, and you can also have a cuboid, which I don't see why you would use a cuboid unless you're using like a sphere shape or something like that. So I'm just going to go back to the sphere. But one of the coolest things about this modifier is, yeah, this is okay, but if I bump this back down to 0, whoops, something's wrong. I'm going to bump this down to 0.5. So now that we've got this, we can also change the radius. If the radius is smaller, then it will kind of go, if it's 0, then it'll start going, it'll go like that. But if you do 0.5, that's smaller than the cube. So technically, imagine a sphere inside of this, and so when I bump up the radius, you can see that that sphere is being grown. That's the best idea I have of it. I'm going to bump that down to 0.5. Let's add a control object though. So I'm going to create an empty. I'm going to go to arrows, just like that. And now if I set control object to the empty, and I bump the factor up, it's like 2 with a factor. Actually, let's set the factor to 1. This to 1, 1.5. And you can see you can kind of get some cool effects from this. It's just a lot of playing around. I'm just going to do like that. And now, size, you can set it to be size from radius, or you can just set it to, I'm just going to set it to like that. So now you'll see that as I move this, it starts to deform. Now that's cool, but why would we use this? Well, this is the animation we're going to make. So from this, I'm going to go from radius just because it wasn't working. And so now I'm going to make this vector 0. Now it will give you an error. You can set it to 0.01 or something like that. But this is the animation we're going to make. So I'm going to hit Shift A. I'm going to add a UV sphere. And I'm going to hit 1, then 5, so you can see that they are the same size. And I'm going to move this over right there. So now I'm going to hit I, location, and then I'm going to go 30 frames forward. Actually 40 frames. And I'm going to move it to the opposite side, which I believe is right there. Hit I, add a location key. So now, if I go backwards, you can see that it goes like that. Now, what's the point of that? Well, we're going to add a cool keyframe, because you can actually add keyframes on modifiers. So we're going to go to right before it hits, and we're going to set this, we're going to insert a keyframe there, and then at frame 20, right in the middle, we're going to bump this up to 1. And I'm going to insert a keyframe there, and then as soon as it comes out, I'm going to insert keyframe, but this one's going to be 0.01, like that. And I'm also going to bump the radius down to like 1, something like that. But now you'll see that nothing happens. That's because that's how we set it. We need to set the control object to the sphere. So now if we go back, you'll see that wasn't a good view. Still wasn't a good view. I'm going to bump the radius up. And so now you can see, if I bump that down to like 2, let's say, now you'll see that it looks like it's going through. And that's actually a pretty cool effect. And you can play around with the radius to where you can get it where you want. But that actually looks pretty cool. And it's a lot of playing around with how you like it. I forgot to change that keyframe, so. But I mean, like, you could go back to here. You could set it to 1.5, like that. And you could go. It's a lot of playing around with what works best. So like I'm going to change this to 1.5. I'm going to replace the keyframe. And it's not smooth, but you can see that that's pretty much the general idea. And if I set the max to 50 frames, so it just loops over and over again, that looks really cool. And you could use that for a bunch of different things, but that's just the one that I used there. If you check use transform, then it just uses the position of it. And there's a lot of cool things you could do with this. You could set it to where it didn't work with the z-axis, so it kind of did like that. You could also set it to where it only went through like that, which kind of looks like it's popping through, which is actually pretty cool. You could set it to where it only pops through on the z. You could set it to where it only pops through on the y. And there's so many uses for this, especially in animation. You could do like a bullet going through gelatin or something like that for animation. And yeah, that's really all there is to it. It's not that complex of a modifier, but once you get it down, like the armature modifier, it's a lot simpler. Thanks guys, hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you like this tutorial, don't forget to check out our previous tutorial when we started the deform modifier sections on the armature. In that tutorial we learned about bones and stuff like that. Not real bones, like bones in Blender. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you guys next time.